The fourth episode of My Hero Academia Vigilantes is out, titled Top Runner. Of course, we're going to be breaking down the episode as well as the entire season each week, so be sure to Detroit, smash that like button, and subscribe to the Kyoki channel so that you won't miss any My Hero Academia Vigilantes content. Now, the episode begins with Koichi chasing down the three Sternum Drang brothers, whose quirks are Glide and Slide, the polar opposite of Koichi's Slide and Glide quirk. Their names being Sturm und Drang actually being a German phrase meaning storm and stress. That was a literary movement that emphasized individual subjectivity and free expression against the restraints of rationalism, which is reflected in the brothers' view of society being a cage for their wild natures. Their wild natures being stealing women's underwears. Knuckle Duster does make quick work of the brothers, and since they had nothing to do with Trigger, they all move on. But Koichi notices that something is bothering Knuckles since the big breakout of the instant villains. Now, the anime surprisingly doesn't adapt the entire moment where Koichi does get mistaken for being a part of the Sturm und Drang brothers, since his quirk is basically the same as theirs. Koichi trying to reason with the brothers to try and express their fetishes in a more reasonable way. Popstep rightfully giving Koichi an earful about Koichi giving in so much thought into trying to help the brothers go about things the right way, and I will say I totally agree because these guys straight up traumatized those women, and Koichi is just trying to reason with them. Say what you want about Deku, but he wouldn't have let this shit slide. To be honest, removing this moment was probably for the best given how bad it makes Koichi look. At Koichi's house, Knuckle trains Koichi on how to box, and he asks Knuckle if him not talking much has something to do with the B user. Knuckle knocks Koichi down to the ground, and Koichi isn't sure if he's suited to be fist fighting, and Knuckle tells him that he's right. He should just leave all the fighting to him. He then hits Koichi with a flurry of punches, knocking him down again, and Pop tells Knuckle to take it easy on Koichi. Koichi realizes that Knuckle is actually holding back all this time and has been doing the same with the instant villains as well. He beats them up enough to not kill them. We switch over to Hachisuka, and a very familiar voice is telling her how she overdid it the other day. Of course, this all too familiar voice is All For One, meaning that All For One is behind the dealing of Trigger. All For One tells her that while she was entrusted with Trigger to distribute at her own discretion, Trigger is a precious product that's not something to be given out at random. A person's physical abilities are heavily influenced by their strength of character, and quirks are no exception to this. A strong spirit is indispensable if one wishes to wield an uncommonly powerful quirk. Just like heroes and villains, the resources they seek are the types of people who harbor explosive potential within, ones who can pull the trigger on their own strength of will. Hachisuka believes this all to be a big pain for her, but at night she finds just the right person. The junkie villain ends up using his trigger state to cause havoc in the city. While on patrol, Koichi is attacked by the man. Pop tells the civilians to evacuate the area, but a man is cornered by the villain, and Koichi is able to save him before the villain was able to kill him. He goes after Koichi again, but Knuckle Duster swings into action, kicking the villain across the face. The villain then raises his fist in the air, punching down at Knuckle Duster, but Knuckle Duster manages to dodge the attack. Knuckle Duster analyzes that the villain gathers up all of his strength, focusing it in his fist at the last second, causing him to unleash such explosive power. Koichi thinks they should keep their distance, but Knuckle Duster is wearing his black Air Forces and goes in for a one-on-one. The two begin to trade blows, with Knuckle Duster just barely dodging the villain's explosive punches. The villain builds up more and more power in his fist, going in for the finishing blow, but Knuckle Duster dodges the attack and counters with a clean right hook, knocking the villain out and breaking his teeth. Knuckle Duster states that the villain's normal attacks had speed behind them, but his final attack had a ridiculous windup, so the moment his fist came crashing down, it was easy for him to slip in with a counter to his defenseless body. Now, this fight was absolutely amazing in animation, with some moments being clear references to the All Might vs. All For One fight in Kamino, in the way that All Might was able to dodge All For One's attack, with it only grazing the side of his face. The following day, Koichi and Knuckle get back to training, with Knuckle finally feeling more like himself again, and Koichi is happy to see Knuckle being himself, despite being laid out by him again during training. Hachisuka, on the other hand, is once again talking to All For One through her earphones, and worried about the Vigilantes' interference with the instant villains. All For One tells her that the Vigilantes' presence actually gives them an advantage since they are able to get real battle data without involving heroes or the police. All she has to do is collect data without providing any to the enemy, proving her worth as a coordinator. Hachisuka is then interrupted by a man who planned to meet her from an app, and she leaves the cafe with the man ready to see the man's wild side. At night, we see the villain Mad Bat running on the highway being chased down by a Team Ida 10 emergency vehicle. Once given the green light on no civilians being present on the highway, Ingenium is deployed from the back of the vehicle. In his deployment sequence, we see that his suit contains a HUD similar to the armored All Might suit. Him running down the highway at high gear was also the perfect scene since we finally get to see Ida's older brother in action at top speed with that Ida level animation. In an attempt to grab the Bat villain to slow him down, the Bat villain quickly moves out of the way, showing off his discolored tongue, letting us know that he's been taking trigger, and kicks Ingenium to the ground, sending him crashing into a wall at high speed. Luckily, Ingenium had installed airbags, but the Bat villain managed to escape. The next day, Koichi goes on a jog in order to train using slide and glide. He passes someone else who is also out for a jog, and he notes that he needs to work on braking. The man quickly catches up to Koichi, scaring him, but before Koichi crashes into the wall, the man saves him and introduces himself as Tensei Ida, the Turbo Hero Ingenium. Koichi is a huge fan. He saw Koichi slip and slide around so wildly and wondered how exactly does his quirk work. Koichi explains that his quirk is kind of like gravity repulsion, showing Tensei that he can move in all types of directions. Tensei thinks Koichi has a great quirk, but for him, his quirk isn't all that great with precise movement. Even his little brother Tenya can't even handle corners, and we see the future Ingenium make a cameo appearance in the episode, splatting onto a tree for not being able to turn. Koichi completely understands how Tensei feels because he loses control at higher speeds, having no way to brake. Tensei analyzes Koichi's quirk, telling him that his problem is how he's using his quirk. Since Koichi can't go in reverse, instead of thinking about stopping, he should try accelerating in the other direction to cancel out his momentum. It ends up working, and Tensei can see massive potential in the speed of Koichi's quirk. Ingenium explains that when someone is in trouble, the first thing they think of is someone being able to save them quickly. When the world's been turned upside down in some big emergency, very few people are able to remain calm like lost children. So it's his job to reach them even a second faster to give them that peace of mind. So a number one factor for heroes is speed. Now, Tensei's whole speech about speed and saving a child, giving them peace of mind, parallels what his younger brother Tenya does for Shoto Todoroki years later during the All-Out War, where he tells Shoto that the reason he has this quirk to begin with is to help lost children find their way home. Koichi tells Tensei that he isn't a hero, and Tensei offers Koichi a spot on his team after he graduates. Team Ida 10 prides themselves on teamwork. The ones on the front lines, their patrollers, navigators, and support staff are all valued members. A sidekick with more nuanced movement is someone he wants to have on his team. Even though Koichi doesn't have a hero license, a way he can go about it is once he becomes support personnel on the team, he can let his skills shine once on the scene, and the qualifications of being a full-on hero will come over time. The ideals they follow at Team Ida 10 is finding just the right use for more focused quirks, winning the day through teamwork, and Tensei hands Koichi his business card. The anime here does remove the All Might and UA high school cameo, on top of Koichi at home excitedly letting everyone know that he was scouted by Ingenium, and Knuckle Duster getting a little jealous, thinking Koichi isn't happy with him being his master. At night, Ingenium is once again chasing down the Bat villain, with him being able to keep up with the villain due to removing the airbags in his suit. The Bat villain, impressed, believes Ingenium gained the resolve to stake his life on a race with him, but Ingenium says that he's staking his life on his teammates, and we see Team Ida 10 had set up a crash pad for Ingenium to safely crash into. In order to avoid crashing, the villain spreads his bat wings, flying in the air, escaping. Ingenium's sidekicks all move into action to trap the villain, but Mad Bat blitzes past all of the sidekicks, causing the pursuit to go back to the ground. Ingenium struggles to track the villain as his bat quirk lets him slip in and out of the darkness, and he sees the Crawler sliding into an alley. Koichi slides out, tripping the bat villain, and Knuckle Duster follows up, punching the villain, knocking him out. Ingenium finds Mad Bat beaten and tied up, confused on who did it. From the rooftops, Koichi announces to Ingenium that Knuckle Duster and the Crawler, a couple of guys who don't mind lending justice a hand, was the reason why the bat villain was stopped, with Popstep claiming to not be a part of the crew despite being 100% a part of their vigilantism. They go off into the night, and Ingenium smiles knowing exactly who the Crawler is, and prevents his team from pursuing the vigilantes. While on another jog, Tensei runs up on Koichi, thanking him for the other night. Koichi denies being the Crawler, and Tensei, understanding, tells Koichi if he does see the Crawler to tell him nice running. Tensei also asks Koichi for his business card back, since if he's truly set on being who he is, then he has to respect his decision. Koichi sadly gives back the card, and Tensei tells Koichi to cheer up, and the episode ends with the two of them racing to the next corner. Now, this episode covered a total of 2 chapters, them being chapter 6 and chapter 7. I have to say, this was an action-packed episode, and while the action isn't on the same scale as the fights in My Hero Academia, Vigilante's more grounded fights shown in the episode and the high-speed chase are just so good, especially in the animation department. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts on the 4th episode of My Hero Academia Vigilantes. With that said, be sure to Detroit, smash that like button, and if you are new to the Kidoki channel, then be sure to subscribe with notifications on so that you don't miss any My Hero Academia Vigilantes content, and I'll see you all in the next one.